Dr. Armento, one of the sports medicine physicians at Children's Hospital, Colorado.
And I'm Megan Ramsey, one of the athletic trainers in the sports medicine department, outsourced to a local high school.
We are going to be talking to you guys today about proper stretching and warm-up for injury prevention in young athletes.
Studies show that a warm-up is very important in preventing injury and enhancing performance.
Football is a high-intensity sport with lots of movement in different directions, and it's really important to prime your body for this activity.
A warm-up is any type of activity that gets the body warm, preparing it for intense activity, increasing the flexibility of muscles and the mobility of your joints.
It's important to distinguish the type of movement in your warm-up. There is static stretching and dynamic stretching. Static stretching involves moving into one position and holding that position for a period of time, whereas dynamic stretching involves moving a joint through that range of motion. In general, we recommend that you use dynamic stretching in your warm-up rather than static stretching.
Developing a warm-up program should last about 15 to 20 minutes, and it should be something that is taught to your athletes at the beginning of the season and then done every day before any game or competition.
Next, we're going to go through a sample of a warm-up and demonstrate those exercises for you. These exercises can be done over 10 to 20 yards with your athletes. Let's get started. The first exercise is butterflies. This involves a skipping motion forward and backward with swinging the arms overhead or across the body. It can be done over 10 to 20 yards, as much as it takes to cover that distance, skipping forward and then skipping backward. The second exercise is skipping jacks. This involves shuffling side to side, back and forth, using your arms in an overhead fashion, kind of like a jumping jack, but a different version. Again, this is done over 10 to 20 yards in one direction and then back in the other direction. The third exercise is walking knee hugs. This involves stepping with one foot and then taking the other leg into a hug, knee to chest, which really gives a nice stretch in the back of the muscles at the hip. This is done moving forward 10 to 20 yards and then backwards for another 10 to 20 yards. The backwards movement is particularly good for working on balance and is a little bit more challenging than moving forward. The fourth exercise is called open the gate. This is a hip opener exercise, which basically means we're promoting mobility at the hip. This is really important for a sport like football, where you're doing a lot of side-to-side cutting and pivoting, and you're priming those hip muscles for that type of movement. It basically involves opening the hip, open into one direction and into the other, and you can pair this with a shuffle so that you're moving forward and backward through that movement, which we'll demonstrate shortly. The fifth exercise is a walking lunge with a twist. So this involves stepping down into a forward lunge and then twisting the body towards the leg that's out in front, and then coming up and alternating to the other side. Not only does this warm up your leg muscles, but it also helps activate and warm up your core muscles. Okay, the sixth exercise is what we call a samurai. This involves moving into a lateral lunge in one direction and then the other direction, and then you use your back leg to swing and propel yourself around facing the other direction. This can be done in sequence over 10 to 20 yards and then back. It's really important, as Megan is demonstrating, to load into that squatting leg, making sure that your knee is not coming over your toes and that you're really activating the muscles around the back hip. Next, we're going to demonstrate a squat to toe raise. So this involves just a basic functional squat down, but on the way up, you actually come up onto your toes. So you're combining a squat essentially with a calf raise and then back down again into a squat. This is one where you're not going to move with it, but you can do about anywhere from 10 to 20 reps, maybe starting with 10 reps at the beginning of the season and progressing to 20 reps as your athletes become stronger and more comfortable with this. The next exercise we're going to show you is called Inchworms. This involves coming down essentially into a plank position and then bringing your legs back up behind you, sort of in the pattern of an inchworm. It works on engaging the muscles in your arms as well as in the core when you're holding a plank, and also gives a nice stretch to the back of your legs as you're coming forward into the inchworm. This is a little more challenging of an exercise, so doing it over 10 yards is just enough. The next exercise is lateral jumps, or what we call skier jumps. This involves moving side to side, jumping side to side, making sure you stick that landing with a bent knee as you come into that jump. This is something that doesn't need to be done in a forward and backward fashion. Again, 10 to 20 reps or so is sufficient. And this is a great exercise for really activating all of the small muscles around your ankle, your knees, and your hips when they have to work on stabilizing that leg as you land the jumps side to side. All right, the final exercise we're going to show you is the karaoke combined with a sprint finish. This involves a more traditional forward and backward karaoke movement that Megan will demonstrate shortly, but at the end of that movement, you're going to sprint several yards forward. This is a great thing to use as you're transitioning more into your running drills after a warm-up, as the body is more primed for those explosive type movements. Now that you've seen a sample warm-up routine, you can understand that we recommend starting with more gentle mobility exercises to loosen up the body, and then progressing to more explosive movements towards the end of your warm-up as you plan to get into more practice or a game.
If you ever have any questions or concerns about programs for your athletes, don't hesitate to reach out to one of the sports medicine providers at Children's Hospital Colorado.
Thank you so much for watching.